Chris Wood pulled away from the woman beneath him, irritation blazing through his veins. She lay there crying softly, whispering broken apologies, insisting he was too much for her, that she couldn't endure him. Her words only fueled his frustration. He fastened his trousers with sharp, impatient movements, his body still hard, still unsatisfied. Useless, he muttered, stalking toward the floor-to-ceiling window of his Manhattan hotel suite. Surrounded by beautiful women, yet not one of them can handle me. That was when he saw someone he hasn't seen before, someone that looked different, scared, tired, yet attractive. Across the courtyard, on the balcony of the opposite tower, a fair woman stood on the ledge, her toes hanging over the edge, her body frighteningly still. 20 floors below, the city lights shimmered like distant stars. He was about to jump. Chris froze. For a moment he told himself it wasn't his problem. He should turn away. Pour another drink. Forget the failed encounter still lingering in his sheets. That was how he survived, detached, unbothered, untouched. But his body betrayed him. Before he could stop himself he was already moving. He watched in horror as the woman leaned forward, her silhouette slicing through the glow of New York's skyline. In that suspended second before gravity claimed her, something inside Chris cracked open. Something raw, unwanted, and dangerous. She fell. Chris vaulted over his balcony railing, landing hard on the connecting ledge. His hand shot out blindly, fingers scraping skin before catching hold of one trembling finger. The force nearly dragged him over with her. Muscles burning, teeth clenched, he braced himself against the concrete and hauled her upward with brute strength forged from years of ruthless discipline. They collapsed onto the balcony together. The woman sobbed violently, her cries tearing through the cold night air. She pounded her fists against his chest, her grief explosive. "Why did you save me?" she screamed. "Why couldn't you just let me die?" Chris grabbed her wrists, firm but controlled. "You're alive. Be grateful." "I don't want to be alive," she shouted back. "I've lost everything." She tried to crawl toward the edge again. Chris wrapped an arm around her waist and slammed her gently but decisively against the wall, blocking her escape. "Why?" he demanded, his face inches from hers. "Why do you want to die?" Her laughter was hollow, shattered. "Because the man I loved destroyed me." The words poured out of her in broken fragments. Her name was Tonya. She had built a successful import and logistics business from nothing. Long nights, smart risks, relentless ambition. Then she met Matthew. Charming. Intelligent. Convincing. He spoke the language of growth and strategy, promising expansion, partnerships, and shared dreams. He trusted him. She married him. She signed every document he placed in front of her. Matthew had drained her company through shell accounts, secret loans, and forged authorizations. Over $200 million in debt under her name. By the time she discovered the truth, he had vanished, leaving her to face the fallout alone. "The police think I stole the money," Tonya whispered. "And Matthew, he's living happily with his real wife, Lizzie. They have 1-year-old twins. He was married to her the entire time, planning his escape while I was losing pregnancy after pregnancy and blaming myself." Her tears reflected the city lights like shattered glass. "I have nothing left," she said quietly. "No business. No family. No future. I just want the pain to stop." Chris stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then he stepped back. "You're foolish," he said flatly. She recoiled. "You're the victim," he continued coldly. "Yet you're the one trying to die. He should be the one paying, not you." "I don't know how to fight," Tonya whispered. "Then learn." His eyes drifted over her, her curves, her strength, the fire buried beneath her despair. Something stirred inside him, dark and hungry. He was different. Thought. Unbreakable if sharpened correctly. "Don't kill yourself," he said. "I'll help you get everything back. I'll destroy Matthew." "The children are innocent," she protested. "I don't care," Chris replied. "But my help isn't free." He stiffened. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, invading her space. "I want to know if you can handle me." The slap echoed sharply across the balcony. "You're disgusting," she spat. His security team appeared instantly, hands ready, eyes deadly. Chris raised a single hand, stopping them. "Leave her." Tonya backed away, panic flashing across her face. "I'd rather die than be owned by you." Not an option anymore. He lifted her effortlessly, tossing her over his shoulder as she screamed and fought. Within minutes she was shoved into the back seat of his car, Chris sliding in beside her as the doors locked. "Kidnapping me won't save you," she cried. "I'll go to the police." "The same police hunting you?" he replied calmly. "Try." His estate in the hills outside New York was massive. Gates, guards, and silence. Inside, staff moved quickly, obedient and quiet. "You're imprisoning me," Tonya said as he led her inside. "I saved your life," Chris replied. "You're welcome." She was taken to a luxurious guest suite, where she finally broke down completely. But by morning something inside her hardened. She wouldn't lose. She stormed into Chris's bedroom later that night without knocking. "Help me," she said firmly. "I'll work for you. I'll manage your businesses, your finances. I built an empire once, I can do it again." Chris studied her, then nodded slowly. "You start tomorrow." She turned to leave. "One more thing," he added quietly. "I always get what I want." Tonya didn't look back. "Then you'll be waiting a very long time." The next morning, Chris Wood's driver delivered them to his headquarters in downtown Manhattan. A towering glass skyscraper with Wood Global engraved in sleek steel lettering above the entrance. The building radiated power, wealth, and quiet intimidation. Tonya stepped out of the car wearing one of the designer outfits that had appeared in her closet overnight. The tailored black dress hugged her curves perfectly, sharp and elegant, making her feel composed for the first time in weeks. She lifted her chin as they entered the building, refusing to look like someone who had nearly lost everything. She was introduced to the executive team as Chris Wood's new strategic consultant, brought in to evaluate and restructure their investment portfolio. If anyone questioned the sudden arrival of a foreign woman at the boss's side, they were smart enough to keep it to themselves. Her first assignment was a meeting with American and Asian investors, cautious men in tailored suits who wanted reassurance that their capital was secure. Before Chris could even speak, Tonya took control of the presentation. "What you're seeing here is a diversified portfolio built for long-term stability and aggressive growth," she said confidently, clicking through the slides. "Real estate holdings have appreciated 42% in 3 years, but that's only the foundation. Technology and logistics are where the real expansion is happening." One investor frowned. "And how do you handle volatility in tech?" "We balance risk," Tonya replied. "Every high-growth investment is backed by blue-chip stocks, treasury bonds, and liquid reserves. We stress-test assets quarterly and embed exit strategies into every major deal. Growth means nothing without protection." The room shifted. Interest sharpened. Another man leaned forward. "And your experience, Miss Tonya?" "I built and ran an international import business for 7 years," she answered calmly. "I understand markets, supply chains, and people. Confidence attracts money, and I'm confident this is the right place to invest." Within an hour, contracts were signed. Chris waited outside the glass conference room, watching her with quiet intensity. "You handled them well," he said as she stepped out. "They barely looked at the paperwork." "They looked at the results," Tonya replied. "That's what matters." That evening, while she reviewed financial files in her room, Chris entered without knocking, setting a laptop on the bed. "We found him," he said, pulling up account records. "Matthew moved your money through shell companies and offshore accounts. He thought he was invisible." Tonya's breath caught as she scrolled through the evidence, her stolen life mapped out in numbers. "Can you lock the accounts?" she asked. "Already happening. By morning he'll be cut off." Chris's smile was sharp. "He'll know someone's closing in." "Thank you," she whispered, emotion cracking her voice. His hand lifted, brushing her hair back. "You could show appreciation." Her knee came up fast. Chris folded with a sharp grunt, and Tonya bolted from the room. "I'll get you back for that," he called after her, half amused despite the pain. The next day, Tonya avoided him completely, asking her colleague Candy to submit reports for her. "Policy says you have to deliver them yourself," Candy said apologetically. Reluctantly, Tonya entered Chris's office, setting the file on his desk. "Running from me?" he asked. Before she could retreat, he was there, too close, one hand briefly gripping her throat, firm but controlled. "Do that again," he warned quietly, "and you'll regret it." "Then don't touch me," she snapped back. "Pause." Then he released her. Get back to work. Across the city, Matthew lounged comfortably in the mansion he'd bought with Tonia's money. Lizzie sat beside him holding one of their twin sons. She really trusted you, Lizzie laughed. Matthew smirked. Emotion makes people careless. She signed everything. And now, she'll take the fall. I made sure of it. They laughed, unaware their safety was already crumbling. Back at the estate gym, Tonia pummeled a punching bag, every strike fueled by rage and regret. Sweat dripped as she dropped to the mat for core exercises. That's distracting, Chris said, lying beside her, eyes unapologetic. Stop staring, she snapped. I won't. He pinned her briefly, heartbeats colliding. Get off me. After a moment he rolled away. Fine. The following Monday, police stormed the office. Tonia Williams, you're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. She was taken in cuffs, interrogated, dismissed as guilty. Hours passed in a cold cell. Then Chris arrived. He slammed paperwork on the desk and demanded her release. When the cell door opened, he pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I won't let them touch you again. In the car she trembled. How did you do that? I made calls. The case is frozen. He looked at her. You're safe. That night, over dinner, she sighed. I don't know how to repay you. His eyes darkened. I have ideas. She tossed a roll at him. And that's why I won't fall for you. He caught it easily, grinning. Never is a long time. Don't wait for it, she said. He smiled anyway. Hi besties, if you are enjoying this story, kindly subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. Later that night, alone in the quiet luxury of her room, Tonia found her thoughts drifting back to the police station. To the way Chris Wood had wrapped his arms around her without hesitation. The fury in his eyes, sharp and dangerous, yet paired with a gentleness that had surprised her. He had held her like she mattered, like she was something precious he refused to let the world crush. Chris was crude, blunt, unapologetically honest about his desires. Yet he had kept every promise he made. He had helped her when he owed her nothing, asking for nothing in return except something she wasn't ready, or willing, to give. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts aside. Focus. Revenge first. Healing later. The next morning, Chris summoned her to his private office. His head of security was present, along with a young man she hadn't met before. Slim, sharp-eyed, fingers already flying over a laptop. This is Jay, Chris said. My best hacker. Jay turned the screen toward her. Matthew Williams has been running an embezzlement operation for at least 5 years. You weren't his first victim, Tonia. There were 2 women before you. Same pattern. Same ending. Her stomach dropped. He's done this before? 3 confirmed cases, Jay replied. He targets successful women, gains access to their finances under the excuse of business expansion, then drains everything. He changes details, names, documents, each time. Lizzie's family connections help him reset his identity. The screen shifted to a web of transactions. The loan he took out in your name was used to buy properties. Those properties are registered under shell companies linked directly to Lizzie's brother. They plan to sell them and double the money. Can we prove it? Tonia asked, leaning forward. We can prove the money trail, Jay said. What we need is intent, messages or communications showing he acted without your knowledge. Chris's security chief nodded. We have a contact inside his bank. If Matthew talked about his plan anywhere, we'll find it. Do it, Chris said coldly. I want everything. Over the next several days, Tonia immersed herself in work. She helped streamline Chris's operations, negotiated deals, and assisted with building the case against Matthew. But something had changed. Chris was distant. Professional. Controlled. The teasing remarks were gone. The heated glances vanished. When she spoke, he listened, but only as a colleague. One afternoon she was reviewing reports when he entered the conference room. The Asia-Pacific deal is finalized, he said evenly. 3-year commitment. Good work. Thank you, she replied, waiting for anything. Send your expansion ideas to my assistant. And then he left. The door clicked shut and something hollow settled in her chest. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Distance. Respect. Space. So why did it hurt? Days later she delivered a major investor presentation, her strongest yet. The room was packed with New York's financial elite. She commanded the floor, fielded every challenge, laid out a vision so compelling that investors applauded before she even finished. Everyone was impressed. Everyone except Chris. He sat at the head of the table, eyes on his phone, expression unreadable. He didn't look up once. When the room erupted in applause, he stood and left without a word. That was when it broke her. She locked herself in the restroom, pressing her hand to her mouth as tears spilled free. Why did his indifference hurt more than Matthew's betrayal ever had? She missed the way Chris looked at her, like she was powerful, desirable, alive. His attention had made her feel seen, not broken. Wanted, not pitted. "This is what you asked for," she whispered. "You told him to stop." But her heart didn't care. That night, sleep refused to come. Her mind replayed everything. The night he saved her from the ledge, the way he stood between her and the world, the promises he never broke. Chris wasn't Matthew. He didn't manipulate or deceive. He was honest, sometimes painfully so. He had never crossed a line she clearly set. And more than anything, he had shown up, every single time. He had saved her life. Given her purpose. Given her strength when she had none left. And she had pushed him away at every turn. Lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, Tonia finally admitted the truth she had been avoiding. She wasn't afraid of Chris Wood. She was afraid of wanting him. Tonia shot upright in bed, her heart racing. She didn't know exactly when it had happened. When irritation turned into longing, when resistance softened into need. But she could no longer deny it. She wanted Chris. She wanted his attention, his focus, the way he used to look at her like nothing else in the world existed. But he had stopped. Somewhere along the way, he had decided she wasn't worth chasing anymore. The realization hurt more than she expected, squeezing her chest until tears burned behind her eyes. The next morning, Chris announced they would be attending a 3-day business conference in San Diego, where America's most powerful corporations would showcase new financial and tech innovations. Tonia felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this trip would break the invisible wall between them. It didn't. During the drive south, Chris barely spoke. His attention stayed glued to his laptop, fingers moving briskly over the keyboard, his expression unreadable. Tonia sat beside him, hands folded in her lap, fighting the ache in her chest. The conference took place at the San Diego Convention Center, its glass walls overlooking the harbor. The space buzzed with power. Executives in tailored suits, investors exchanging cards, deals being born with firm handshakes. Tonia stayed close, performing her role flawlessly as Chris's consultant. Yet he maintained a careful distance, always a few steps ahead, never once reaching for her or meeting her eyes for longer than necessary. They were reviewing a display of new financial software when she heard a laugh. A laugh she would recognize anywhere. Her blood turned cold. Tonia turned slowly, and there he was. Matthew. He stood less than 20 feet away, his arm wrapped possessively around Lizzie's waist as they chatted with a group of investors. He looked wealthy, relaxed, confident, dressed in a designer suit likely paid for with the money he had stolen from her. Lizzie leaned into him, sharp and elegant, her pregnancy just beginning to show. Another child. Another stolen future. Matthew's eyes swept the crowd and landed on Tonia. Recognition flickered, then cruel amusement. He whispered something to Lizzie and started toward her. "Well, I'll be damned," he said loudly, his voice carrying. "If it isn't the criminal everyone's been looking for. Someone should call the cops. We've got an embezzler right here." Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Tonia felt the weight of every stare, the silent judgment pressing in from all sides. Her face burned with humiliation. Then something snapped. She was done being afraid. Before Matthew could say another word, Tonia stepped forward and slapped him hard across the face. The sound cracked through the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd as his head jerked to the side. She slapped him again, leaving bright red marks on his cheeks. "That's for stealing my life," she said coldly. "And that's for every lie you ever told me." Lizzie screamed and rushed forward. "How dare you touch my husband?" She raised her hand, but Tonia shoved her squarely in the chest. Lizzie stumbled backward, crashing into a display table. Glass shattered. Brochures scattered across the floor. Matthew roared and lunged at Tonia, his hand raised. And suddenly he was stopped. Chris Wood appeared out of nowhere, catching Matthew's wrist mid-air. With one smooth motion he twisted and forced him down to his knees, pain ripping a grunt from Matthew's throat. "Touch her," Chris said quietly, his voice calm and lethal, "and I will cripple you." Matthew fumbled for his phone. "She's a criminal. Call the police." Two uniformed officers approached, but the moment they recognized Chris, they stopped. "Sir," one said respectfully, nodding. "Is there an issue?" "No," Chris replied, releasing Matthew with a shove that sent him sprawling. "Just a misunderstanding." The officers nodded and walked away. Matthew stared after them, stunned. "What? Why aren't you arresting her?" They were already gone. Slowly, realization dawned on Matthew's face as he looked between Tonya and Chris. "Who the hell are you?" Chris's gaze was icy. "Someone you should have stayed far away from." The quiet possession in his words sent a shiver through Tonya. Instead of anger, she felt safe, protected in a way she hadn't felt in years. Matthew helped Lizzie to her feet, their whispers frantic as they retreated into the crowd. The drive back north was silent. Tonya stared out the window, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She had fought back. She had stood her ground, and it felt incredible. "Thank you," she said softly. "For protecting me." Chris didn't answer. Back at the mansion, he disappeared into his office. Tonya paced her room, nerves buzzing. Just after midnight, a knock sounded. Chris stood there holding a thick folder. "This is everything," he said, handing it to her. "Bank records, emails, statements from his previous victims, proof of the shell companies. My lawyers will file tomorrow. Matthew will be arrested within days." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. It was all there. "How did you do this?" she whispered. "I told you I would help you," Chris said simply. "I keep my word." Overwhelmed, Tonya dropped the folder and hugged him tightly. "You saved me," she said through tears. "In every way." He stiffened, then slowly wrapped his arms around her. Breathing him in, she lifted her face and kissed him. What was supposed to be nothing more than a grateful, harmless peck changed the instant their lips touched. Something sparked, hot, unexpected, uncontrollable. Chris would let out a low sound before catching himself. His hands came up to Tonya's shoulders, gently but firmly pushing her back. "Don't," he said, his voice rough with restraint. Tonya stared at him, confused and stung. "Why not?" "Because I finally moved on," Chris replied, though his eyes told a completely different story. "I stopped chasing you. I accepted that you didn't want me. Don't do this to me now." Her gaze dropped and she saw the truth he was trying to deny. A slow, knowing smile curved her lips. "If you're really over me," she said softly, sliding her hand down his chest until she felt the undeniable proof through his pants, "then why is your body saying otherwise?" Chris caught her wrist but didn't move it away. "Tonya, I want you," she whispered, rising onto her toes to kiss him again. "I've wanted you for weeks. I was just too scared to admit it. I was protecting myself after what Matthew did, and I couldn't see that you're nothing like him. You're honest, loyal. You kept every promise. You make me feel alive. I don't want you to be over me. I want you to want me again." That was it. Chris's control snapped. He pulled her into him, kissing her with weeks of pent-up desire and frustration. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her head back as he deepened the kiss, backing her toward the bed. They fell onto the mattress together, tangled in urgency and heat. Tonya tugged at his shirt, desperate to feel him, and he tore it off before reaching for the zipper of her dress. "Are you sure?" he asked, breathless, pausing just long enough to give her a choice. "I'm sure," she whispered, pulling him back down. "I want all of you." What followed was slow at first, careful, controlled, but the restraint didn't last. Soon they moved together in perfect rhythm, building until the world disappeared and only each other remained. Later they lay entwined, breathing each other in. Chris traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. "You're incredible," he murmured. "Everything I imagined and more." Tonya laughed softly. "Your ego is showing." "Can you blame me?" he said, kissing her temple. "You're mine now, Tonya. No running. No pushing me away." The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead it made her feel safe. "Yours," she said quietly. "But that means you're mine too." "Always have been," he replied. "From the night I saw you on that rooftop." The next morning, Tonya woke to an empty bed, and shouting echoing through the mansion. She threw on a robe and rushed downstairs. Matthew was on the marble floor in handcuffs, bruised, disheveled. Federal agents and prosecutors surrounded him. "What's happening?" she asked. Chris stepped out of his office, immaculate in a charcoal suit. "Your ex-husband was arrested an hour ago. Breaking and entering, assault, and federal fraud totaling over $2 million. He was caught trying to flee the country with fake passports." Matthew looked up at Tonya, rage twisting his face. "This is your fault. We were happy until you came back." "You were never happy," Tonya said coldly. "You were a thief living on stolen money." The agents dragged him away. Tonya felt only relief. The trial took place in a packed New York federal courthouse. Evidence poured in, emails, shell companies, bank trails, and testimony from other women Matthew had destroyed before Tonya. Lizzie's name surfaced repeatedly. When Tonya took the stand, she spoke clearly and without fear. "He didn't just steal my money," she said. "He stole years of my life. He broke me. And he nearly killed me. But she survived." The jury deliberated for hours. Guilty on all counts. Matthew was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Full restitution. Asset seizure. Lizzie was arrested days later for conspiracy and money laundering. Tonya reclaimed her assets, sold everything tied to Matthew, and restarted her business from scratch, on her own terms. Chris offered help. She declined. "I need to rebuild myself," she said. "I understand," he replied. "But you're not alone." Their relationship deepened, steady, honest, real. 6 months later, her company was thriving. One evening, Chris appeared at her office with roses and a ring. "Tonya Williams," he said, dropping to one knee, "I love you. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered through tears. They married by the ocean in California, surrounded by close friends and family. Matthew rotted in prison. Lizzie served her sentence. Tonya's business flourished. And sometimes, late at night, when Chris held her close, Tonya remembered the ledge she once stood on, and marveled at how close she had come to missing everything. He survived. He fought back. She won. And now, wrapped in the arms of the man who never looked away, she was free.